Okay, so we are live on Facebook and Instagram, and for Humanizing the Icon. And on the Facebook part, Celio Bordin, a renowned artist from Italy, is going to be transforming the chat into a live work of art. He's a perception artist. So if you don't see it today, it will be in the YouTube episode for Humanizing the Icon. So hi, Celio.
Hi,
Celio.
I'm excited today, very nice. And thank you, Sean, for participating to this talk. Thank you, Jennifer. And I try to draw the energy that I perceive.
Yes. All right, we'll let you get started. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. And we'll talk to you at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, have fun. Okay. Hi, Sean.
Hello.
So tell us where you are first.
I'm ready.
Because it's just so beautiful.
I'm in a construction zone, apparently. I was just telling you before the show, I've never seen construction start at 3 o'clock. I used to work construction. We always finished at 3 o'clock. And apparently these guys have started at 3 o'clock, just very surreal. So I'm in California and enjoying nature, which is one of the great aspects of this shutdown of 2020. The lockdown of 2020 is, those of us that have an opportunity to get out of the cities, get back to nature. That is the one of the benefits of having this time.
Yes. What are they constructing around you?
Oh, I don't know. Probably working on a house. It's just bizarre that it started at this time so late in the day.
Yeah.
Like the sun's about to set. The sun usually about to set in 2 hours, and you just don't usually start this kind of construction that late. It's strange.
Yeah. Well, actually, you sound pretty good, so hopefully
good.
It doesn't get louder.
Yes.
But okay, so you said something interesting already. This time during COVID times has brought you back to nature. Is that what you said?
Yes. I mean, in my case, I would say that I was drawn back to nature the last few years. It's like I was sort of maybe being prepared for it. Sort of we call it digital nomadic lifestyle. I used to travel a lot more. This year I still had the opportunity to get away from America a little bit, but it's not the same amount of travel. Obviously they're trying to lock us in and lock us down, but there is an opportunity here for us to get back to nature, to connect to earth, basically, to get out of these big cities which are overcrowded and toxic. That is the calling I feel from the positive, the silver lining of this great transformation of 2020.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Do you remember when we met for the very first time? I was thinking about that.
It would have been about 10 years ago or something, maybe even more. Yeah, about 10 years ago.
Good memory. It was 2010. Mm-hmm. It was in New York at an artist loft. When I was doing my first film.
There's a lot of those. There's a lot of those.
It was a cool one. You remember which one it was? It was Michael's in Union Square. Sailor.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was
Michael Saylor.
Yeah, yes, the Little Death was performing with Moby, and we played snippets of my art film, Billy Bates.
That's right. Yes, it was a fun night.
So I was thinking it would be cool, since it's kind of a 10-year cycle, to get a sort of recap of highlights from you of what the last 10 years has really sort of been for you in terms of your journey, because it just seems like a lot's been going on and it's really fascinating. And I just wonder what the highlights are for you.
Oh my God.
What comes 10 years, just without thinking.
It's so wild.
Yeah.
Well, it's just wild. The 10-year journey of the 2010s. I haven't reflected on it that much, in a sense. I've been more forward looking. But for me, 2010 started with with putting together my film Greystone Park, which I released in 2012, which was based on where I was that time, which was very much investigating the dark side of life, going into haunted realms, mental hospitals, abandoned mental hospitals. So, madness and
remember.
and demonic activity, and just sort of like this being swept up by the irrational. It was the night side of my exploration, very dark few years. So I think it was the dark night of the soul, you could say, in a way, that I was going through and exploring. And then 2012 was actually the portal. Like, I released my film in October, and December was the beginning of this transformation that we're now approaching now, 7 years later, 8 years later. It's like the cycle has to hit a new octave, right? 8 is the end of the octave and the beginning of the next one. So as far as 2012 goes, we broke through this portal in time and opened up to new dimensions of understanding, ayahuasca journeys. And I just remember traveling and kind of like putting myself out there publicly in new ways with Conspiracy Theory, the TV show, and then my show Buzzsaw, and then RT doing news. So I started putting myself out there and taking risks as a more controversial figure, right? And then through that time period, working on many scripts along the way, many things that are still undeveloped and not, I say not have been developed but not made. So that's what I'm looking forward to in the coming decades. But the 2010s were very much, I guess, about laying groundwork, a lot of groundwork, a lot of exploration and new ideas, new dimensions of seeing. My film Fury of the Fist came out a couple of years ago, and it feels more relevant than ever because it was so much about the breakdown of reality and the conspiracies that we meet along the way, and this multidimensional journey that we're on. Each one of us is, we are each one of us on our hero's journey, right? In its many different forms. And so, yeah, I guess it's the 2010s are how you say have closed. 2020 seems like it's a really tough year, but I say great transformation, because there's a lot of good on the other side of night. And right now we're going through the dark night as a collective for us to light up, and to the more quickly we light up, the more that we can activate and work together as lights, to bring out a new reality from this, not the new normal that they say, but a completely new reality that we are the creators of, and the guides of each other along the way.
Yeah, I tend to concur and feel like COVID has been some type of cosmic code. It really has felt like code for, like you kind of touch on in different words, this sort of like up-leveling, or this moment where we get to, even just to put it simplistically and practically, like reset or drop excess from our lives, or reflect, or even if it's painful, to just like really shed and deconstruct. And I find that really powerful as a collective. And I think that what you said about taking this risk as like a controversial character in the world and publicly is also, I actually think the word coincidence is really powerful. Like, I don't think it's like, oh, just a coincidence. So I don't want to say it's like no coincidence, but it feels like the convergence of something when you are stepping out in that way at this time. Was that sort of consciously inspired by what we're going through during this pandemic time, but that was like already something that was in the works, obviously? But do you feel like this experience has motivated you more, let's just say, to take risk in that way? Yeah. And what do you mean also about, like, what does it mean to you to be a controversial character and to step out? Because humanizing the icon, which we'll get into, that is literally exactly the premise of this conversation.
Precisely. Well, let's dive into it. Before I do, I have to mention, there's a lot of people that are like viewing, and it says there's only 4 people, and I see no comments. It's very strange. Do you see it on your side, on your Instagram?
I have more people than you.
No, on Instagram, it's like usually I see the comments and the people like that join, and I don't see anything. Are you seeing comments or anything?
Yeah, I've seen a few comments, and
Oh,
I have more people watching than 4. So I don't
okay.
know.
Okay, well, that's good.
That-
I can't see anything on my side, so it was a little
That's
strange,
yeah,
because
and
I
some of
was
these
like,
people I don't know, so I'm
yeah,
guessing
I,
they might know you.
yeah.
So I
It's
don't know why
always
you don't see them.
I don't see any comments. It's always fun. Sometimes people have good, questions or
Aloha
comments.
Vern just put a smiley face. Do you see that?
No, nothing.
Okay, you
No,
don't see
no,
anything.
nothing.
Oh
That's why I was
no.
just checking. Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
as far as well, I mean, look, I took my step. 2012 was my gateway into the public eye. You could say 2012. I really came out, released my film, came out. Had some shows that I was on. Piers Morgan and Bill O'Reilly that year, and again doing conspiracy theory that aired in 2012. So all these 2012 was my entree to being a controversial figure.
How did that
So
become a
I'm used to
niche? Like, how did they even start to like recognize your voice in that realm? Like,
that.
just through the
Well, I
film,
mean,
or
it's a long
okay, okay,
story.
okay. We can
You
stay
could,
focused.
you could say no. I mean, it's a good story. I mean, it's essentially, look, nothing in life is by happenstance. Everything is guided. Everything is
Mhm,
is us either stepping into our purpose and our power,
mhm,
or running from it and avoiding it. But you can only avoid what you are so long, right?
mhm,
It's
mhm.
this is the great reckoning we're going through right now. It's karma is catching up to a lot of people right now. The truth will out, as they say.
Mhm.
So for me, again, 2012 was that time period where it just happened that year. I went to Iran. I ended up um, in a controversial space, defending, I guess, Iran at that moment in time in 2012.
Okay.
A different position I probably wouldn't have now, but at the time I felt it was a necessary position. Um, I was in a position, again, with the film, to lead me to conspiracy theory, because I was exploring, as I said, the haunted realms and paranormal activities and things that were, outside of this dimension. So that led me to conspiracy theory,
Mhm.
that TV show. That was the TV show, the final season, and then that show led me to doing Buzzsaw, which became sort of a bread and butter for me for a couple of years, and that was all about interviewing people on those topics of the esoteric and conspiracy and all the things that we're actually experiencing or living or being revealed in this pandemic year. I think it's like the Great Awakening, right? The
Yeah.
the Q movement and all this stuff. Like, well, those things have been around for a long time. Those conspiracies and
Yeah.
those those topics are not new, but they're new to certain people that maybe that weren't familiar with it, like I was at that time. So I was sort of again, and I was avant-garde in that regard. Oh, my pen is
Yes.
falling here. And that was just part of where I was needed. Here we go. I was needed at that time, uh, because of my background as you could say the son of Oliver Stone, and in movies like JFK, and
Yeah.
working on the Untold History of the United States with him, which is a documentary series. So I'd studied these things. I wrote the New World Order. My book was about this whole agenda to control
Mhm.
the United States from foreign, through foreign um, agents, ultimately,
Mhm.
trying to take control of the U.S. sovereignty. So many things that have been, in a sense, percolating, or that I've been party to, or just aware of, have brought me to this point in time. And 2020 is a great transformation and awakening for those who haven't seen the conspiracy. Well, it's rolling out in front of your eyes every day, and there's more and more more and more conspirators being revealed and exposed, and their agenda is becoming, like, it's just so clear you can't miss it, clear as daylight.
Mhm.
So I feel like it's not that it does make me feel more encouraged and inspired. It's still controversial. Yes, I'm not, the mainstream media has never embraced any of these things. The mainstream media still is playing out this irrational hatred of conspiracy theory, even though
Mhm.
they use conspiracy theories whenever they want something. Like 9/11, for example, they love the conspiracy theory of 19 hijackers taking down 3 towers in New York and hitting the Pentagon, but they don't like any conspiracy theory that contradicts their narrative. So people like me
Mhm.
are really a conundrum for them, because I'm educated And it's like my father has been too, right? A thorn in their side, where it's like, we actually have intelligence. We're not just like, out here, in the backwoods, making up stuff, from taking too much ayahuasca or, smoking too much dope. It's like, we're educated people that actually, have seen things and are aware of things, and they don't know what to do with us. So it puts us in a beautiful position with alternative media to have our voice, to get the message out there, and find more and more people waking up every day that are like, yeah, you make sense, and you make a lot more sense than CNN does. That's for sure.
Totally. So how does it feel? This is going to sound really funny, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Are you used to being controversial at this point? Like, is there anything that like you sometimes feel triggered by where you're like, oh, maybe I, need to be diplomatic here, or I shouldn't have said that? Like, how do you navigate that? I think that's interesting.
In my being, I don't feel controversial.
Right.
In my being, I feel actually very, Schiller talked about this, that poets are the true diplomats. The wave, really where we're going is that the poets, the artists are the diplomats. They are the real politicians, the statesmen, right? Because we know how to communicate between cultures, and we know how to see things and pick up on things that many people with an agenda or a bias don't want to see. And that's what the artist is there for. The artist is there to say, well, you're missing this, or let's look at that. It's a beautiful position to be in. I feel more of an artist than I do, an antagonist. I don't want to be an antagonist. In fact, what's funny is, now I'm like, I'm coming out and like, I'm so much more patriotic than I used to be, because I feel stronger about the need for the constitutional republic of the United States to prevail. And so it's funny. It's like now it's like those people like myself who are actually talking about a coup d'etat against the president, and how, we're for the Constitution. We're supposed to be the antagonists or the controversial ones. Giuliani, Mayor Giuliani is now the controversial one in the eyes of the mainstream media. This is the same Giuliani that was being praised by everyone in this country when 9/11 happened. This was the mayor of New York City that was there for 9/11, that cleaned up New York, that everyone loved. And now he's the guy that mainstream media is like mocking and ignoring. You see how the world turns? So what is it to be antagonistic and controversial? I want to be antagonistic against people that are basically that want to destroy the principles of this country. And there's many issues in America, and I've been someone along the way, like my father has been before me, to point those out and to criticize American policy. But at the root of America is a beautiful principle. It's a constitution. It's a Declaration of Independence that promises natural law, which is God's law, which is all men and women are born, I paraphrase in women, but the point is, in principle, all men and women are born free, right? That's such a beautiful principle. And yet I feel like there are those that are literally brainwashing the masses to go against the entire principle and constitutional nature and basis of this republic. So it's funny that you can be in a controversial position when you're actually defending America, and 70 plus million Americans in the red states are the controversial ones now because they voted for Trump. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. It's like, it's that hologram, right? It's like whatever lens you're looking through is sort of how you perceive it, and it's like constant. It's like constantly in flux.
Well, because the mainstream media manipulates it. And my father did a great film called Natural Born Killers. Violent, yes, and over the top satire, but it was meant to show you, what did he say about media? He's like, you're man-made weather. You guys are worse, like you're like the worst kind of predators in the world. You're the worst kind of purveyors of lie, because you basically create this landscape and you call it truth, and you manipulate everything for your either what you call ratings, but ultimately for your bias, right? And that's what the media is about. So the media is the one that creates this notion of, who are the good guys, who are the bad guys, who's right and who's wrong. Where are the unbiased journalists nowadays? It's like they are so hard to find.
Yeah. But what do you think about how easily programmed we are, like as a species? Because that also plays into why they can even be the predator, right?
Yes. Well, we're programmed because if you really think about it, we're a traumatized species.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in the Anunnaki stories of Sumeria, that these sky gods, or beings of noble blood, so-called, that came from the stars, manipulated us, our genetics, that we were designed as a slave race initially.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at human history, we've been slaves throughout most of human history. It's been slaves of empires, right, of the financiers, debt slavery. Now there's still more slavery in the world,
we're
by the
still
way,
slaves,
than ever in
I
history.
feel.
Yeah, we're certainly debt slaves, and we're still slaves to systems. So
Mm-hmm.
if you look at what the human being is, it's a traumatized race that's been basically, our parents, women and men both, have been brutalized. Women obviously through force of custom, oftentimes physical force, being captured and seen as property.
Mm-hmm.
Men have been traumatized since their history as fodder for wars. Soldiers. The idea of a man is nothing unless he's a soldier, and he has to go prove himself by killing or being killed.
Mm-hmm.
This has been the psychology that's been passed on from generation to generation within humans. So it's very difficult to find a society that's really built on the idea of freedom and the
Mm-hmm.
principle of critical thinking and the independence of not just thought and body and action. And that's really what America was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously it's flawed, it's been flawed, but at least the principle, the basis is there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what matters. That's why America, to me, is so important at this time, at this juncture, where it's like, if we stay free as a humanity, America has to stay free.
Mm-hmm.
If America goes into this idea of, total lockdown, total control, submission to authority, fear,
mm-hmm.
you lose your sovereignty over your body, over your thoughts. You're being censored online. You're being censored with your thoughts. It's over. The whole world is there's no hope for the world if America goes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Somebody, yeah. True. And somebody just asked if you could speak about the light waves of 2020.
The light waves? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know if that was something you'd
means.
referenced before or not. You
I
can
don't know exactly.
interpret what are the light waves of 2020.
Well, I mean, there's so many different interpretations of it's like, are we talking physically, specifically? Oh, my camera's getting smudged here. I'm trying to clean it up and it's getting worse.
Oh my gosh, you look like this is a very psychedelic experience.
I love that. That's awesome.
I know. But also, I want to talk about your book, because that's
Which one?
The current one that you've been, the poems, right?
Oh yeah. Well, because Desiderata came out earlier this year.
I just got an Amber Alert, which just paused me on Instagram. Okay, there.
Oh, Amber Alert.
Which is also,
I didn't know anyone was.
What?
No one's allowed outside. How can they be an Amber Alert? No one's allowed outside.
There's a lot of people outside, Sean.
That's good. I know.
But also a cycle too. I'm really into numbers, That was a 20-year in the making, journey, this book, right? From what I saw.
The Ephemeral Shades of Time.
Yeah.
The Ephemeral Shades of Time. It's a poetry collection that I started really when my teens. I started in high school. And so a lot of it was very dark, brooding emotions that reflected some of my travels. I traveled to places like Somalia and Sudan and Kenya to visit refugee camps and to work in Somalia for a summer with the refugee population there that was returning home.
Mm-hmm.
And then, a lot of these basically were just like moods and textures for my feelings. And this was kind of the brewing. I could feel like it was interesting because I could feel the darkness coming before 9/11. And so, 9/11 was sort of, it was obviously there's a lot of factors involved in the conspiracy of it, but actually the energy of it was, I could feel it coming before it came. I could feel that drive towards war and this overall darkening landscape that was, the 90s had been overall a pretty casual decade. Yes, there were horrors. They talk about refugees and crises of war across the world, and a lot of it perpetuated by talking about what the deep state CIA agenda really was. It's always been not just CIA. I mean, talking British Empire stuff. This is about controlling populations and land and resources, governments, and of course, we were involved in things like bombings in Yugoslavia and partly involved in the conflict in Somalia and Bosnia. But the point was that I could feel that darkness that was across the landscape coming to America, because America had been kind of, we've been free of it a long time. Since World War II, we hadn't been hit in the homeland.
Mm-hmm.
And I could just feel the dogs of war stirring. I didn't know how it was going to come, but 9/11 came and unleashed even more hell, so much
Mm-hmm.
fear of terror and all that whole philosophy, psychology of terror that became the 2000s. So this poetry collection is, I think, a little bit of a transformation from dark to light. There's a lot of darkness, there's a lot of pain and anguish in them, but the poems also reveal some very profound truths about the soul and reflections on our cosmic purpose and origin. And then, I think love prevails and in the stories. But again, it's an experience. A poetry book or a collection is the ephemeral shades of time, meaning that it's like we get glimpses and slices of life, and these poems are reflections of moments along the way, and before you know it, decades have passed, and yet we have these memories. And what is a memory? It's just like a little interpretation of what, a few seconds of time. Very difficult to understand. It's moods and impressions, I think, are more interesting in a way than specifics, because there's a personal, subjective interpretation to it.
Exactly. It can really, like, you can feel it in a deeper way, I think.
Yeah. So that's the poetry book. And hopefully it can give people some courage and inspiration for the time we're in now, because it is dark and lonely for a lot of people.
Yeah. And I feel like to me, art is the heartbeat of creation and humanity. And I think poetry, like you say, just kind of captures the essence of something, or the visceral kind of experience of something, that it'll translate differently in somebody else's body, but at least it's an experience, and so I'm excited to check it out. I'm glad you did that. I have so many poems. I always think about putting them together.
I think you should. I think poetry is, it's a language of the soul. We all connect to it. Music is poetry if it's done well. A lot of this pop music, I don't know if it can be considered poetry or not, but I guess it rhymes. So that's half the battle.
There you go.
But any computer can make rhyme schemes now. It doesn't really mean anything.
Right. True. So Humanizing the Icon is, it's interesting because where I landed, which was at the Venice Biennale last year, putting together an exhibit called Humanizing the Icon, which came out of the Mary Pickford film. Someone that saw the film and loved the art, kind of invited us over. Celio was a part of it, and other artists too. And it launched me into something I'd been exploring for a long time, but went way deeper into this idea of humanizing and icon, image, persona, identity, even like quantum mechanics. It brought us through mythology and spirituality into pop culture and just all these layers. It's like an endless paradigm. I don't know if you remember this, but anyway, okay, so that's how we got to this show, was because of the Venice Biennale and because of Mary Pickford. Now, I don't know if you remember when last year you saw my film at that little museum before it was like
a cool little museum.
Remember the Hollywood Heritage museum that you guys came to?
No, I'm saying it's a really cool museum, actually. I'd never been there before.
Oh yeah, it's like a little barn. It's really, really cool. And when I saw you at that restaurant in Venice, now I'm blanking on the name, you and your girlfriend said that there was like code in my movie, which is called Why Not Choose Love, a Mary Pickford Manifesto. And I never got to follow up with you. And I was like, if you don't remember what you saw and what you meant, like, that's completely fine. But it came to me today, and you just brought up love, and Pickford wrote a pamphlet about love as the highest frequency.
Yeah. Why Not Choose Love? Was that the name of it?
Yeah, that's the name of the movie. Her book was actually called Why Not Try God, but she talks about God as love. So I changed it to Why Not Choose Love. Yes,
perfect. Honestly, I don't remember what we were referring to, because it was more of an impression, and it was like, if we had talked about it at the moment,
I know,
I could have gone into more detail. But yes, as we know, art is full of code. It's symbolic for a reason. Symbols touch us on intuitive levels. They connect to us. They bypass the conscious mind. That's why the power of entertainment, film, TV, all these things. It's like it's connecting people on the unconscious levels that most of the time they're not even aware of. Same with music, right? All the different instruments, instrumentation going on, even you're not even conscious of, right? So, yeah, I don't know. It was very much. It reminded me. The film reminded me of some of the expressionist films, right? Of like Weimar era Germany,
Yeah. I
expressionism.
thought it was
And I thought
interesting
was very unique.
because also fast forward to this year earlier, I didn't know you had done Esoteric Hollywood on Gaia.
Oh, Jay Dyer's book, Esoteric Hollywood.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it, to be honest. It was such a
Jay
a
Dyer.
moment of synchronicity for me because I had just checked out some stuff that Ben Stewart did. And his stuff, I literally thought of you like while I was looking at his stuff. I didn't even know you had a connection to Gaia. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to check out more stuff. And then the next thing I click on was Esoteric Hollywood. And it was you. And I was like, that's funny. I just thought of him.
Okay. So Gaia, that's where I used to do Buzzsaw for a few seasons. But Esoteric Hollywood has been Jay Dyer wrote a couple books called Esoteric Hollywood. And we interviewed Jay for a documentary I did called Hollywood DC. Okay. And Hollywood DC didn't get as much into the esoterica, although I'm fascinated by the symbolism. And that's again, like artistically to take apart, films and look for the Illuminati symbolism or the alchemical symbolism and all this kind of stuff is fascinating. But Jay, in my documentary, Hollywood DC, was mainly talking about the CIA experiments with mind control, the MK Ultra projects, right? And how this would have trickled into some of the films that were put out in Hollywood, and how it would have their understanding of how the mind could be controlled. Earlier we talked about how do people get programmed and brainwashed. Well, there's oftentimes an agenda beyond just the simple notion of repetition, right? You keep repeating something, people believe it. Mainstream media is great at repeating stuff, right? And then there's basic hypnosis, which happens anytime you're watching television, really, for like more than 10, 15 minutes of time. You go into a semi-hypnotic state. And then, again, there's like even deeper layers of coding that can be put in. But you think about the nature of a film in general, it's magic. It's set and setting. So what do? You go in the old days, at least. Now you watch it at home, but like, you dim the lights, you're in an auditorium. It's got like, low light or like, almost candle level of lighting. And you're in a black, darkness, and then the screen lights up, and the music kicks in, and the music takes us where the music sort of transports us into another realm, and then we're basically engaged in this psychosensual experience for the next 2 hours. So it's very hypnotic, and it's very trance-like, if you think about, like, it puts you into a bit of a trance. And now it's become so pervasive that I think we're mostly we're most of the time hypnotized because the social media devices are everywhere. So if you're not in a trance from your phone, you're in a trance from whatever it is, the YouTube or the social media, or your whatever is coming through in your computer screen. We're oftentimes living in trances nowadays, which is even easier to program.
Yes, yeah. So that was so interesting to me because Pickford knew these things. Like, she knew the power of storytelling and the way that you speak about it. So I was like, there is a kindred spirit, like tribal thing going on with some of us and Pickford, who I did also find out was like following Yogananda and like hanging out with Alan Watts. And Yogananda was talking about how everything is a projection, and he wanted to get in touch with the people of Hollywood because they were exploring the projectionism, literally, as he was understanding more about the optic nerve and more about how there is no external. And so he saw a direct link to Hollywood and went to seek out who's the main major beings of Hollywood at this moment. and it was Pickford and Chaplin, and they became friends. And it was like 1920, or I don't remember the precise year. But all in this moment around March of this year, I discovered Gaia and Pickford / Yogananda together, and that more of the esoteric world. Like, it was all at the same time, and I felt like, why am I seeing this all right now? You know, stuff that I'd seen before and felt and articulated, but now it was like direct symbols in my life. Like the woman I'd been studying for 10 years, you as my friend, now popped up on this show. And like, it was just such an interest, and it was the start of like the stay-at-home order, you know?
Yeah, well, exactly. This is why this year has been so transformational for many people, is they've had an opportunity to yes, things have shut down, economies have crashed, many people have been really devastated by it, but they have, the good thing is, again, they've had an opportunity to maybe disconnect from the matrix long enough to start to question and see deeper, and to understand that they were part of a matrix system, and, you know, to reflect upon what that system was really about. And, you know, it's many things, because you mentioned Yogananda, by the way. Another synchronicity was that we used to live in Palisades right next to the lake shrine, which was built by Yogananda, right? And it is very much a question of what we do, because we are the creators. There is no external reality. At some level, we are unconsciously giving our energy and our power, some consciously, very consciously, you know, signing deals with devils, but most people are unconsciously giving their energy and power to a matrix system that is creating this energy feed, basically, and harvesting of our energy. Oftentimes it's tied to money. That's why most people, I say, are living in debt slavery. But there's an energy connection to this. So if there's an external reality, it has to be coming from something inside of us. It has to be coming from our own unconscious programming to submit, to basically not question, to not stand in our sovereignty and our power. And this is the point that has to be understood. It's like, we can't simply sit here and go, the bad guys are out there, the Satanists are out there. Yes, there are very satanic elements and energies, but at what level is it inside of you? And this is always where it gets challenging for people, because the inner work is so essential to the actual process of awakening and actual inner transformation to external transformation. So if you are not cleaning yourself out, if you are not looking at your own programs, if you are not doing the work to find that darkness that lives in you, right? The scripts, the programs, the things that are keeping you at a level of pattern programming, let's say, then there is no point in fighting externally. You know, it won't matter, because it's the same problem that you get into, where it's like, you know, I always said this about, you know, some of the women's empowerment things, right? And I say, well, what's the point if a woman gets into power in a system that is itself satanic or allows for systemic corruption and abuse? What does it matter if it's a woman or a man? You think that a woman will be more benevolent? What it took for her to get there is still the same dead bodies. It's still the same how you say, virulence of character, the same maliciousness of personality that it took, you know, a man to get to that position, right? If you're in a pyramid. So if we don't change the entire structure, you're just changing the facade, right? So you're saying, you know, take him out and replace him with her.
That's what I say.
But you're not changing the system. You're not changing the system. Right? So so it doesn't matter. It's like, this is the problem. People get into this facade thing. It's like, you know.
Yes.
Right? They get to the Vogue magazine reality, I call it, the Vogue magazine level of reality, where it's like,
well, it's like switching out the superhero, right? Like with the female body, but she uses the same superpowers.
Exactly. She's just a man. She's a man, and she's using the same masculine energy, the masculine principle. But where's the feminine principle? Where is the reciprocity?
Exactly.
Where is the notion of the circle, which is more of a feminine force? If we're still in the same explosive dynamic of, you know, again, the pyramid of power, that all the power gets concentrated to the top, as opposed to, again, with feminine.
So then I wondered, because I thought like something, I must be off or missing something, like being judgmental, if I only see it that way. And I thought, well, is that still a step somehow? Like, are we just like a species of really, really baby steps? Like,
Oh no, we're
it's
ready for a
like,
big leap.
oh, what?
I say we're ready for a big leap.
I know, but I was just like, well, maybe this is still a step in the process, like that they're just putting the female in the male, the toxic male, because males, there's nothing wrong with male or masculine. Like we need that as much as we need feminine, I believe.
Oh yeah, but I think they're starting to classify everything masculine as toxic, and it's not everything. But I'm saying like they're
no,
taking
it's just
that
not.
term way too far. Yeah, they're taking the term way. There's a lot of, I believe, a lot of my film Fury of the Fist dealt with this a little bit, right? Where it's like he's the ultra masculine character. Fury of the Fist is he's Donald Trump, man. This guy is like so ultra masculine. It's set in the 80s, right? Back when the action hero was the macho male. And the dark side of the macho, as we know, the toxic male, yeah, it's sexist, it's like egoic, right? The ego is too big. I mean, look, it goes back to the days of Gilgamesh in the again, talk about the Sumerian texts and the ancient Mesopotamian civilization. Gilgamesh was this great heroic figure, but he's also full of ego. You know, so is Hercules, so is Achilles, right? All these great male heroes get too swollen with pride. So the character in the story has to go through his transformation to balance himself out. But you need the male energy to defend, to protect, to secure. You know, that's part of the male energy that allows for, how do you say, for the hearth to feel safe and to feel like the woman can come into her full potentiality. Now, I don't say woman as only the feminine energy.
Yeah.
Because we have feminine energy in us as men, and women have men.
And we've been leading with a lot of masculine too.
Outweighing. Well, I'm saying so the point is that women shouldn't have more masculine than feminine, and men shouldn't have to have more feminine than masculine, because the balance is always stoking that kernel. But it's like it's the yin yang, right? So it's like within us we have the feminine, but if the feminine is too dominant, you're going to waste what is our great energy and our great power. And the same for females. You know, women's, you know, yes, they're physically very strong women, but the power of the woman is more in the biological and evolutionary spiritual notions of intuition, of sensitivities, right? Of certain gifts and powers that are more intrinsic. Now, there are always the exceptions. No one's going to say like this rule applies to everyone. You know, it's just like, you know, you can't say everyone is anything, right? There's always the exception. There's always the anomaly. But just simply as a pattern, I don't feel that we're honoring that which is the divinely feminine principles, which are more about intuition and nurturing and sensitivity and, you know, caring and certain, you know, qualities and, you know, certain wisdoms that belong to the female and, you know, that are separate from the males. That's all. Just they're just different instincts, different intuitions, but we also have different biologies. And if we can't accept that, that's where we have a real problem. Yeah. And I feel like some of this PC stuff is like, it won't accept the notion that there's a separation of biology. It's like, well, let's get rid of that separation. Let's turn this into this sort of hodgepodge. In my film, Fear of the Fist deals with that. It's like, it's this sort of like, we call it girl boy bok choy. I mean, it's like they kind of mash it together in this GMO, genetically modified organism.
GMO, I love that.
Yeah, the genetically modified
Where can
human.
people find this? Where can people get your stuff?
Oh, it's on Amazon. It's on Amazon
okay,
or
cool.
You know, 2B or whatever. You know, it's out there.
Okay, cool, good. Wow, yeah, it's so interesting. So what do you think, like, when you hear even the term humanizing the icon, like, how does that resonate?
Well, I mean, we want to humanize the icon because first of all, icons to me are, you know, they're powerful symbols. Since I was a kid, my icons would have been some of the, you know, actors of that time period. You know, there are obviously many movie stars from also before, you know, even before we're born, those that have passed away. But we know when someone is an icon, they're recognized as a symbol of something, or they did something, they represent something. So oftentimes, as you know, when you have an icon, like just like a statue, it becomes one-dimensional. It becomes the symbolic representation, and that's what movie stars oftentimes have been, you know, in the old days especially, and probably less now. But the separation of the icon from the human, and this is something in my lifetime I've experienced a lot because I was around actors throughout my life, and seeing the human being made me, how do you say, much less susceptible to this starstruck quality, right? This aspect many people have of, oh my God, it's so and so, and it's like, are they interesting to talk to, or do they have a personality, or are they just kind of like consummate actors who are just like waiting for the next script to deliver lines, so they don't really have anything else to say? I mean, it's just I'm being mean. Obviously, most aren't, but the point is that I never had that issue of humanizing the icon. I think for many people that have not experienced an icon though in their life or been around it, it's a much more provocative concept to get them to know who this person is beyond the superficial.
And what about icon as systems or eras or concepts, or even the human, as you're talking about our programs and the unconsciousness we operate from, and the matrix and multiplicity and all these things? It's like, as I've gone into this paradigm, what seems to keep coming up is, well, the human is the icon, right? Aren't we kind of all actors? Like, it was cool you brought up your experience as like growing up around actors, because we are that, right?
Well, are we all actors?
Like, aren't we playing a role like in our incarnation? Like, isn't, like you say, you can kind of switch perspective anytime you want to. You can sort of switch your lens, You even called yourself a character. You even said, I've stepped out as this like controversial character,
Yeah, I mean, look.
I think we're all actors.
I have an interesting, how do you say, interesting feeling around that. Because I feel like the more that we can do the work to soften and open up and reveal our true self, the more we can let go of the acts. Now, at the end of the day, as you know, the greatest aspect that we admire in an actor, right? The greatest talent, ability is honesty. That's actually what we're looking for. Many actors are more honest in terms of their performance than people are in their real life.
100%.
So are we really good actors or bad actors?
That's the thing.
If you can become more honest, you're probably becoming a better actor. If you're hiding, you're behind masks. If you're hiding behind masks, you're a bad actor. You need masks to perform. The best actors don't need the mask. I mean, they'll play it, they'll use it, but they don't need it to perform.
Yeah, and like how Meisner said, acting is being. Acting is so simple that intellectuals don't get it. I mean, if acting is being, then that's, also something interesting. But I think that, humanizing the icon has kind of become, to me, this sort of almost like existential journey, because icon is literally like image, button you push, portal, is Hitler an icon? Like, is our icons just, and dangers of like idolization, like if we are able to, like you say, do the work by going in, will worshiping start to dissolve? Will we become more sovereign and less about creating something that we think of as external, that we put up on this larger than life pedestal that actually diminishes our worth somehow in some way, because we're not that, but yet we are, because we're projecting that image, we're creating that story, right?
Well, there's nothing wrong with the external. So this goes back to what we talked about earlier, which is how the mainstream media manipulates this notion of culture, right? En masse. And it's not a new thing. I mean, throughout history, there are many books that were ignored. Like, let's say that you would never even know about, but then, they'll say like, this is the book of that era, of that moment, or this is a great writer of that era. So the mainstream media has gotten more manipulative, I think, as we've gone, because it's become more expansive, more extensive, because we've lost a lot of the small presses, the small journals, the small town notion, approach to media. So we've got these big conglomerates that are selling you constantly, and as a result, we've lost the notion of the artist along the way. There are artists out there. I'm not saying they're not good artists, but the connection of an artist to the work is, as you know, oftentimes tapered down or affected because of this mass production concept, right? The mass reproduction that's used to disseminate everything from music to film. So if we can get in this coming era, the Great Awakening era, more honesty within ourselves and more sovereignty within ourselves, we stopped looking to the icons. I don't even think they really exist anymore. I think that we've lost the movie stars. There's no movie star that's under 50 years old nowadays. I mean, most of them you'll say like, I know that actor, but it's not the same level what a movie star meant, that would open a movie. I love some of these actors, but if they're not playing a superhero, you're not going to see them you're not going to a theater. Well, no one's going to a theater right now, but you're not going to a theater to see these people in movies because they're not movie stars the same way. And you could talk about TikTok stars or Instagram, models or, things like that, YouTube stars, but it doesn't have the same connotation, doesn't have the same impression. It might affect the psychology of a generation. Absolutely. You can still affect millions and millions of people, but that notion of the icon that was sort of what you wanted to be, right? And that's what I remember still from like growing up in the 80s and 90s. It was like that was an iconic actor. You want to be that guy, or you want to be that character in a movie. You don't really have that so much anymore, right? Maybe the kids do. I don't know. I don't think it's the same quality. So we have to get back now to our sovereignty as each one of us the star, each one of us the creator, each one of us, as you said, the actor, and in that process appreciate art more readily for what it is, as something that speaks to us. And if we can do that, hopefully we can start to bypass these monopolies by the conglomerates of what is supposed to be made and what's supposed to be good and what's supposed to be popular. We need to bypass that and say, look, I want a good story again. I don't care about these stupid, they're great. Yeah, they're great films with, a bunch of effects, but like, I don't want it all to be that. I miss the good dramas and, the small epics, the things that were done for, the right budget that really affected you. And it wasn't just so, I don't even know, like Netflix, it's like television. It's like making movies into television shows and television shows into movies. So I miss the movies that were written and thought out and appealed to you, and you watched them in 2 hours and you had something to talk about afterward. That's what I miss, that experience.
Yeah. Now we talk about COVID.
Oh, forget COVID. I'm so sick of it. Actually, right now, the news is more interesting this year. Certainly the news and the documentaries and the research is much more interesting than anything that's being made. That's for sure. I mean, right now you're watching a coup d'etat playing out real time live. There's nothing more interesting than that. People are not even understanding what they're seeing.
Yeah.
If they can actually understand what they're watching, you're watching a coup d'etat against the United States take place, but half the people are just like, huh? What are you talking about?
I know.
What vote fraud? Oh, this is just that guy Trump. That's a tin pot dictator that we were told for the last 4 years. So they're not really understanding what's playing out. But if you're watching, this is like something you've never seen in your life.
Yeah, and you're right. People don't know, and they're just scared. They're just freaked out.
And that's the worst thing to be, because there's nothing to be freaked out about at this point. The only thing that can scare me at this point is a complete socialist takeover of the United States. Socialist, communist, totalitarian, I don't care what word you put in. Fascism, you put whatever name you want on it. It's not left or right, although it may appear left-wing, but it's an overall alien entity, let's say foreign to the United States as far as its origin. British Empire, transnational corporations, globalists, you want to call them, but they're really like, they have no loyalty to the United States, taking over this country and basically putting us into impositions on total lockdown, vaccination protocols, UBI based on no free thought, controlling our access to currency. I mean, all these stuff is like, it would have been alien to people that we've been talking. I mean, people like myself and others have been talking about this for years. This was all alien to people. It's becoming very real to people. Good. That should scare them, but it should also make them realize what we have is a very powerful thing in this country. And it's something called freedom. And if you don't preserve that, it will be taken from you.
Wow. Okay. That's a powerful message to wrap up on and let Celio share his drawing. Is there anything else though, like with your work or projects you want to mention, just I want to make sure because it's so powerful. You have your website, right?
Yeah, seanstone.info. Everything's there.
Okay,
My
cool.
social media, people can follow. But yeah, this is just, the time is now, man. The revolution is upon us. It's just imperative that we start paying attention to what's going on, and each one of us find our voice and our truth.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So much. And Celio, what did you do here?
That's awesome.
Oh, today is coming very intense work. Oh, I want to read what I draw because I draw the energy of can I perceive today, and then
Can you show them on Instagram? Oh, here, I'll show you.
Yeah, see if you can. That's what I was gonna do.
This is, go ahead, go back to the.
Oh, I saw in this draw
Can you hold it
the,
up a little bit?
the mother of nature.
Lost it.
We have a dry tree. This is a roof of the trees, a mother of nature.
Wow.
She is want to pregnant something, is want to create again, but we have some people can build the tower of power.
The
And
Tower of Power. I love that.
I love that too.
yes, and so in the top, some people, some power people is fight for find some tree for building. I am God. I want my build. I put my flag, not I put my flag. And this in totally is uh, is a natural problem. We have in this time a COVID natural problem, forest burning, forest building, and I feel in this discussion I suffer about this. This draw is a little bit intense, maybe it's a little bit scared, but we have to know the nature mother want to burn is a pregnant, but if we insist with these people to make the tower of power, the arms is tree. The arms is a fake power. The real power is a natural place. And
Mm-hmm.
the bird fly away. Don't look this tree anymore. This is my perception from today.
Wow.
All right. I
That's
love it.
amazing. Oh,
There you
okay.
go.
So we can say goodbye to Instagram.
All right. Goodbye, Instagram.
Bye,
Thank you, everyone.
Instagram. Thank you. And you never saw anyone? We actually had a lot of comments and stuff.
I didn't see anybody. I saw nothing. So,
Okay, now we can say goodbye on
yeah.
Facebook.
All right. Thank you, Facebook.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
everyone.
Facebook. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Celio.
Thank you
Yeah, that was awesome. Celio, beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank
thank
so
you, Sean.
Absolutely.
much.
Thanks, Jen.
This was really fun. I want to actually
Yes.
talk to you more. I'm going to call you.
Okay.
I mean, not now. Don't worry.
Call me after. Yeah. No. Call me soon. We'll catch up.
Okay. Say
All
hi
right.
to Danielle too.
I will do. Thank you.
Okay. Bye,
Ciao.
guys.
Ciao, everyone.
Ciao.
Bye.